James and Jennifer Crumbley have a lot in common with another couple, Tim and Tracy Ferreter. Both couples have been charged with crimes connected to their children. Those children were both teenage boys who were having serious psychological issues. But the big difference between the Crumbleys and the Ferreters is the Ferreters were charged for what they did, and the Crumbleys were charged for what they didn't do. Jennifer and James' son is the Oxford school shooter who committed mass murder. The Crumbleys were charged with involuntary manslaughter. Jennifer was convicted, and now James is on trial, and it's time to hear from that jury. Timothy and Tracy Ferreter were charged with abusing their teenage son by locking him in a box in the garage with a mattress, a camera, and a bucket. Timothy has been convicted, and Tracy is now waiting for her trial. Tonight, we will look at the behavior of the teenage boys and the reaction to that conduct by the parents, while we investigate why one set of parents were charged for doing too much and another set was charged for doing too little. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining. This is going to be an important show tonight. What we're talking about is important. I mean, this is significant. This is about parents. This is about children. This is about safety. This is about where we are in society. And it all begins with what just happened, folks. A big day for James Crumbley. His son, the Oxford school shooter. 4 people murdered. 4 people murdered by his son. And now for the first time, we have a mother and a father who have been convicted of homicide for the murders committed by their child. Let that sit in for a second, okay? This is a big day. For him, it's a big day for us as a society. It's a big day for our system of justice. It's a big day for our school systems from coast to coast, our students from coast to coast, and for every parent watching. Understand what has just happened. Understand how big this is. Parents convicted of homicide for the murders committed by their son. You can agree, you can disagree, but this just happened, which means every parent needs to be on notice tonight. You need to know everything that's going on in your child's life. You need to be there for your child. You need to understand what's going on. You have to understand what he or she is thinking about. Gun owners with children, big day today. Doesn't matter what the law is in your state about securing your weapon. You need to secure your weapons. And I know responsible gun owners do. But up until this point, it wasn't even the law in Michigan. You didn't need to secure it. But you have a child. And I know most do. But it's got to be absolutely secured. Absolutely secured. That was a big part of the conviction of James Crumbley. He was the one that purchased the gun. He was the one that was supposed to secure the gun. Now, parenting is not easy. We know that. There are so many things you deal with day in and day out, but that's a choice that we all made as parents. So we've got to step up, meet the moment, meet the challenge each and every day. And understand this is part of it now. This is a big part of it. They're convicted of homicide because they weren't controlling or understanding what was going on with their child. And they had a deadly weapon in the house. Now, I don't know. Would they be responsible if he took a kitchen knife? I don't know. I don't know where the line is. But the line has now moved significantly. And tonight in this program, we're going to bring you all the coverage of everything happening with this verdict. But we're going to compare parents. And here the Crumbleys, you break it down. What is the crime that they committed? They did too little. They didn't do enough. They didn't take action. They should have known more. That's what this is about. That's what the case against these parents was all about. Not being involved, not being on top of the potential danger that your child presents to the world. They didn't understand what was going on inside his mind. You're looking for lessons from all this as parents. I mean, we've got to think. I mean, there's a lot of lessons to learn here. One of them, snoop. Read the journal. I know it's a violation of everything you think of, right? Read the journal. Then we've got the Ferreters down in Florida. Locked their son inside a box. They did too much. They believed their child was dangerous, was a danger to them, to their other children. There were things happening at school as well when they went on a family vacation. And they did too much by locking up their child. All this behavior, we look at it in a vacuum, we're like, oh my goodness. Well, let's put it all together now tonight. Let's put it together and understand criminal responsibility here. When you believe your child is a danger, or should know that your child is a danger, don't do too much like the Ferreters. Don't do too little like the Crumbleys. Let me bring in Court TV correspondent Kelly Craft. She is joining us on the phone, getting ready for, I believe, a big press conference is happening there. She's in Michigan. Kelly, thank you so much for jumping on the phone with us. I know there's a lot happening at the courthouse in the wake of this historic verdict tonight. What can you tell us about what's happening right now and what just happened inside of that courtroom?
Well, hi there, Vinnie. Yes, we are awaiting the news conference with the prosecutorial team. Karen McDonald is going to be making her way into the library. This is where the prosecutor, the whole team, the prosecutorial team is going to be gathering. There was a gag order in this case, Vinnie, but that has been lifted. We were inside the courtroom when the judge lifted that, and obviously for the verdict as well. So we heard that there was going to be a verdict. All of us hurried inside the courtroom, and then the jury, four-person, read the verdict. We were watching the defendant, James Crumbley, the entire time, as well as watching the jurors when they read that first guilty verdict, guilty on count one, involuntary manslaughter for Madison Baldwin. And we just saw the reaction from the defendant, James Crumbley, in this case. He just shook his head, and then he knew what was going to be coming next, Vinnie. And then they read guilty on the remaining three counts in this case. As far as the jurors, noticed some of them taking a look back at the families as that verdict was being read. You heard a lot of sobbing inside the courtroom, weeping from the families of the victims in this case. They have been through so much. This is their third go-around. Of course, they were part of that sentencing hearing for Ethan Crumbley, in which the Miller hearing took place, in which a judge found that he would be able to serve life without the possibility of parole. Then we had Jennifer Crumbley's trial, of course, in which she was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And then this trial as well. Today, James Crumbley found guilty, 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. His sentencing is going to be the same day as Jennifer Crumbley's, April 9th. So that will be coming up quite quickly here, Vinnie, and we'll have to see what the outcome is. But possibly a little bit of closure, if you will, for the families today. You could just hear them weeping inside the courtroom in this case. But holding someone responsible in our country, criminally responsible for the actions of their son. Obviously, Karen McDonald had said during closing arguments that this is not about the actions of Ethan Crumbley. This is about the actions of James Crumbley, what he did and what he did not do. And obviously the jurors found in her favor, Vinnie.
Yeah, and thanks for putting everything in perspective, the way this was inside the courtroom, because tonight's show we're going to talk about parenting, but think about the parents who aren't parenting right now because they lost their children. And that's what is over all of this. It's about the responsibility that we have as parents to make sure that our children don't victimize innocent people like these four right here.
Yes.
Tate, Madison, Hannah, and Justin. That is a big part of that's the message tonight, Kelly.
It is the message. And you know, Vinnie, there's a civil case as well. It's being appealed because there was a motion for summary judgment. It was kind of thrown out at the trial court level, but they are appealing that. And that's one of the things that they were saying in this case in particular. The actions of the parents here were egregious. That's, of course, the allegations. And that's one of the things that came about when Karen McDonald, the prosecutor in this case, first went after the Crumbleys. And that was then appealed because the Crumbleys tried to get this case dismissed. And the appellate justices, they took a look at this case, they took a look at the facts of this case, and they said, this is egregious. One of the things we heard throughout this case from defense counsel is this is about hindsight and what somebody would do in hindsight. It's easy for all of us to say what we would do in hindsight. But the prosecutor was saying that no, that this was about foreseeability, and that these parents, when that school shooting took place, so many parents ran to the school of Oxford High School. But these parents, James Crumbley, he called 911, and he suspected that it might be his son that could be the school shooter. And so that's one of the things the appellate justices said when they let this case go forward. They said that this was egregious behavior by the parents. This is a unique situation. We do not say that you have to be responsible for every single action of your child, but this case was unique. That's what the appellate justice said. And then here we are today. Karen McDonald now has 2 criminal convictions behind her belt for this school shooting, the actions of Ethan Crumbley, the parents being held criminally responsible. Vinnie, it is a big moment in law.
No doubt, no doubt. If you're just joining us, folks, James Crumbley, the father of the Oxford school shooter, has just been found guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. You see the live picture here of the podium. We are expecting the prosecutors to come out and speak very soon. He's been convicted. His wife has been convicted. They're both in custody. They're going to be doing time. They're going to be sentenced in April. The question is, how much time will they do? I suspect that may be one of the questions that is asked of prosecutors at this press conference, if they take questions, which is, what type of sentence are you seeking for the Crumbleys? Because they're going to be sentenced on the same day. Kelly Craft, Court TV legal correspondent, is with us. She's waiting there for this to begin, is with us by phone. After this verdict, did anyone else speak publicly? Has the jury come out and said anything? Have we heard anything from anyone else after this dramatic moment? I think we just lost Kelly. She's in the room waiting for this press conference to begin. Bob Mata is with us as well. Great attorney joining us from Illinois tonight, host of Defense Diaries. Bob, as we wait for this press conference to begin, historic day here, no doubt, no doubt.
Huge.
And the question is, the line has been moved. The line has been moved for the responsibility of parents and the actions of their children.
100%. I mean, Vinnie, when you were giving your opening monologue, I got goosebumps. I mean, you're echoing exactly what I've been saying to people. And this trial was low key in terms of, I don't think that the people in our country understand what just happened today, but the needle has been moved. Parents are now on notice. Pay attention to your kids, engage with your children, pull your head away from your phone, figure out what's going on in your kids' lives. I know teenagers are tough to deal with. Too bad. we're on notice. Everything changed today. It was a huge case, and I'm beyond proud of that jury because, Vinnie, that was a very, very tough verdict to reach.
Absolutely. 10 hours for James, 10 hours for Jennifer. We see everyone gathering at the podium. We see the prosecution team. Let's take a listen. We're having a little problem getting the audio. Do we have the audio? Obviously, we don't have it yet. There we go.
So many individuals in my office, the entire office, for 2.5 years. We had assistant prosecutors and victim advocates and investigators standing in line to help us bring justice to these families. And I am forever grateful for all of these people who work in this office and serve our county and our state, because we would not be here without them. So thank you. I want to thank Lieutenant Tim Willis of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office and Special Agent Brett Brandon of the ATF. They were instrumental in this prosecution and conviction. They were devoted, they were dedicated, and I couldn't ask for two more law enforcement partners that were as dedicated to victims as these two men. Most of all, I'd like to thank the mothers and fathers standing to the right and left of me. It has taken unwavering courage. I will forever remain in awe of their strength and perseverance that they have shown in the last 2.5 years. This verdict does not bring back their children, but it does mark a moment of accountability and will hopefully be another step to address and end and prevent gun violence. These were egregious facts in this case. These parents could have prevented this tragedy that was foreseeable with just the smallest of efforts. They could have prevented this shooting and saved these kids' lives and protected the hundreds of kids in the school that day and all of the members of the Oxford community that it devastated. With just basic, reasonable, ordinary care. This prosecution is important. The 3 prosecutions and convictions are critical. But we will not solve gun violence with these 3 prosecutions. Gun violence is the #1 cause of death for children in this country, and it is a public health crisis. And we will not be able to address it until we start treating it like a public health crisis. And yes, access to guns is a critical piece of that, but it's not the only piece. We have to focus on prevention, and that's going to require us to understand and accept that it's not just one thing. It's the #1 cause of death for children in this country. So I refuse to take a victory lap with these prosecutions. It will not bring back these kids. We have a lot more work to do. I've started the commission to address gun violence, and we are working towards a comprehensive approach, and we have hundreds of dedicated people in all different fields to do this. And I hope that this attention that you're focused on this case, one, I hope it is always about victims. I hope the constant naming of these people and photos of them will shift to focus on the people standing here, the victims, the kids in that school, the hundreds of kids with not one mark on them that will forever be changed. Let's focus on those people. Let's focus on what we can do to prevent this from happening again. That's where we should be focusing. That's where we should be working. That's my focus. That's my office's focus. And it will be far after I leave this office, which I'm not planning on doing anytime soon. So, and finally, I want to introduce the parents who are standing beside me. This is one small step of accountability, but they want more accountability. And I am proud to stand with them in that endeavor. I'm not going to say their names. I'm going to tell them who you are, tell you who they are. Madison Baldwin's mother, Tate Mears' father, Hannah's father, and Justin's father. They're standing here with me today, and I invite them to make remarks if they want to. But first, if Lieutenant Tim Willis would like to make some remarks. Would you like to make some remarks?
No, thank you.
Okay. He does not want to make remarks.
No, thank you.
Who would like to speak? Steve? Nicole?
So first of all, I just want to thank Prosecutor McDonald and Prosecutor Keese for the marvelous job that they've done putting in the long hours, them and their team, as well as Lieutenant Willis, Agent Brandon, and the whole law enforcement team that got us to this point. But we're not done. As Ms. McDonald said, these are just the beginning steps. There is so much more that absolutely must be done. It's crazy the way that our society is currently reacting to this. Our children are dying on a daily basis in mass murders. And we do very little about it. We complain about Second Amendment rights, or we say, oh, there's not enough money to put again for mental health issues. You name it, there'll be an argument against it. It's the number one killer of our kids, folks. We can put people on the moon. We can build skyscrapers, huge monuments like the Hoover Dam, and we can't keep our kids safe in schools. I think people just need to wake up and take action. Stop accepting the excuses. Stop buying the rhetoric. It is not a Democratic or a Republican issue. It's nonpartisan. Do not accept any excuse from any of the politicians. This needs to be solved, and it needs to be solved now. We do not want any other parents to go through what we've gone through. It's as simple as that. That's all I have to say today. Thank you.
I'm Buck Meir, Tate's dad. First of all, I want to thank Karen and Mark, Lieutenant Willis, Special Agent Brandon. We met a couple folks that did some work behind the scenes. You guys obviously busted your tails, and we appreciate it. And I kind of want to echo what Steve was saying here. This is a deep issue, and it's not going to be an easy one to solve. And it's more than the gun. Our kids are not doing well these days. We're in a mental health crisis. So the gun is just a tool. So we got to look at other things other than the gun. We got to see what we can do to support these kids better. And that both parties should be looking at that. This is a nonpartisan issue. We need to solve this because no parent should go through the hell we're going through. And lastly, we've taken care of 3 legs of November 30th. And there's still a 4th leg, and that's the school. And it's time for the school to pony up. It's time to break up that administration country club And it's time for change. Because we've got 4 kids here dead. And nobody wants to take any accountability. That needs to start tomorrow. Thank you very much.
My name's Nicole Beausoleil. I'm Madison's mom. And I will echo what Steve and Buck has mentioned. I do want to thank the prosecution team, Karen, David, Mark, the advocates, everybody that worked on the case. They have really been that piece that's kind of held us together and really pushed for us and made sure that every step we took, we kept continuing forward. But what I really want to thank is the 3 families that stand with me. This has been a really hard road, and the friendships that I've made with these families are friendships that I wish I didn't have to make the way I did, but these people are some of my best friends, and I thank them more than they will ever know. What I want to say mostly is, yeah, we have a verdict now. We have a guilty verdict for both parents. We have crossed those 3 lines of getting accountability on that end. But right now we have a verdict. We have to execute that verdict. We have to plan for change. We have to reinforce it. This is not just a verdict for attention or media. This is a verdict that actually needs to be put to the platform that it is. How are we gonna use this verdict to actually make that change that needs? We need to start focusing on the school and its failures, the things that they don't want to admit to. That's going to be our next plan for change. They are going to see these families rise up against it, and we will be here fighting every second for our children because they are not allowed to forget any of them. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Craig Schilling, Justin's father. I'd like to start out addressing Karen and the prosecuting team. Thank you so much for your hard work. I can't thank you enough for your efforts in all of this. I'm humbled to be in your presence. Thank you. My heart's beating out of my chest. I'm shaking and so nervous to be here, and I appreciate all of you for your time here. And I really can't say enough about the importance of what we just went through. It's a monumental decision, and the verdict was the same. And I believe that moving forward, it's very important as a society to set the right example for our children and future generations, and come together and use our power of thought and our power of emotion and everything. We can change. We can push forward. We can get through the difficulties of life together if we try. We can't turn our heads to these kind of problems that we face today. It's so important to emphasize the necessity of going after and holding those accountable for their insufficiencies, so to speak. That's where we're at. We have to move forward. We've put much behind us, but there's still so much there in front of us. And I I stand with everybody, with these families here, and with Karen and the prosecution, and hopefully with many others, to work on that change that we need, and to go that extra mile and put forth that extra effort to address these problems. I can never imagine being here, and I don't ever want anybody else to have to be here like this. This is a very difficult thing to go through. But I'm happy to have these people here helping me, and all the advocates, all the community members, everybody that has given so much and helped out so much. I thank you all, and I look forward to the future. Hopefully it's a brighter one. Thank you.
We have time for some brief questions.
Karen,
Yes.
is there a message to parents because of these verdicts?
I think it's the message that every single one of us would have before these prosecutions started. You're obligated to use ordinary and reasonable care, and you owe a duty to other kids in that school, in the community, and you're required to exercise ordinary care. It's an egregious set of facts, And, I stood here 2.5 years ago, and I said, this started with one question: where did he get that gun? Where did he get it? And how did he get it? And that is a question that every single one of us as mothers and fathers asked. And that's what has led to the last 2.5 years.
Adrienne Broadus from NBC News. Thank you for your time. Really quickly, now that we have a guilty verdict, how will you use this to create change? And what message do you have to other prosecutors around the country who are looking at what happened here, the history made in Michigan?
I started, and my team started the commission to address gun violence because I just simply couldn't stomach leading this endeavor with 3 prosecutions and then calling it a day, knowing that we have done so little as a country to address the #1 cause of death for children in this country. So I implore everybody listening to this is preventable. And access to guns is absolutely a critical part of that. But it's not the only part. Up until recently, the #1 cause of death for children was automobile accidents. And we have lowered that. How? We've educated the public. We require people to provide car seats. We've made cars safer. We've made roads safer. We know kids, you can't get in a car without your kids saying, put your seatbelt on, don't text and drive. What if we taught kids about guns? What if we taught kids about how to navigate emotional adversity? Programs like that Buck has started, like 42 Strong, where you're making connections with kids and mentoring them and reaching out way before somebody gets into the moment of crisis. And there are good models which we're going to roll out in our recommendations for threat assessment and crisis intervention. I absolutely applaud these parents for saying what's true. One of these terrible events happens and all we're talking about is the shooter or the people we're prosecuting. But there's so much more. So that's what I'm doing. And I guess the only message I'd have for other prosecutors is be brave, ask tough questions. And if they don't answer, then keep trying. Because I asked the question, where did he get the gun? And that led to a lot more questions. And that led to disturbing, upsetting, and egregious facts. And I could not stand by and tell these parents that what happened and what we know happened and say, there's nothing I can do about it.
Do you believe did the jury give any indication about what drove it home for them? Did they tell you anything, that we can share?
No, and we didn't ask. They've worked hard. It's been a long week. They're tired. So, no, they didn't.
Do you believe that the gun storage law that we now have, that we didn't have before, do you believe that could facilitate bringing this type of case when necessary, given that there's this new legal duty created?
It wasn't in place when I charged the case, but I think any any action by our legislature or communities or schools or employers or organizations that recognizes that we have to use common sense when you're handling a deadly weapon. I grew up with guns in my home. Everyone has a right to own a gun, but with that right, of course, you have to secure it. Nobody was looking at this rationally would say that this set of facts is okay. They just wouldn't. The smallest, littlest of things could have prevented these deaths. And as gun owners and those are the peers, they take that responsibility seriously. But all we really require is basic, ordinary care, and it wasn't done here.
Prosecutor, along those lines, you ended up using that cable lock during the rebuttal. How much of a lasting impression do you think that made on the jury?
It made a lasting impression on me. When I installed that lock for the first time, and my team, we were all sitting around, and it was just very upsetting when I demonstrated that, and it was 10 to 12 seconds. 10 to 12 seconds, and I'm not a police officer, and I'm not an expert in firearms. It's 10 to 12 seconds. And I'm not sure what impact it had on the jury, but it has an impact on me, and I think any parent, and I think for sure these parents standing next to me.
Any idea how many hours your team spent working on the Crumbley cases?
It's been 2.5 years. It was many legal...
What a big day in Michigan. James Crumbley convicted. He and his wife now will face sentencing coming up in April. Our coverage continues from this historic day on Court TV.
Count 1, involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin. Count 2, involuntary manslaughter as to Tate Meir. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Tate Meir. Count 3, involuntary manslaughter as to Hannah St. Juliana. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Hannah St. Juliana. Count 4, involuntary manslaughter as to Justin Schilling. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Justin Schilling.
Unbelievable. Another conviction. So now mom and dad of the Oxford school shooter have been convicted of homicide for the murders committed by their son. Game-changing verdict tonight, folks. Still with me, criminal defense attorney, host of Defense Diaries, Bob Motta, joining us in Los Angeles, California, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist and author of the book, The New Rules of Attachment, Dr. Judy Ho, and in St. Louis, Missouri, licensed mental health clinician specializing in trauma and child abuse and neglect. Sharonda Brown is with us. Great to see everyone tonight. Let me ask you, Bob Motta, this verdict, will this impact other prosecutors, other jurisdictions around the country in bringing cases like this? Number one. Number two, is this a gun-specific case? Or if you have a child who grabs a knife out of the kitchen, do you think it would extend to that? What are your thoughts?
It's a great question. That second question I'm going to get to later because it's a much tougher question. I think absolutely. I think every parent in this country is on notice because law enforcement and prosecutors' offices are going to treat these shootings differently. If your kid goes out and shoots up a school and kills innocent children, you can bet that law enforcement will be coming and getting your phones. They're going to be digging around in the house. They're going to see if you were engaged with your kid. They're going to see if this was foreseeable, and they should. Something had to be done. I've got kids in school, Vinnie. It terrifies me that I have to worry about my kids sitting in the schoolroom, potentially getting shot up. It's gone on long enough. This was a massive verdict today. Like I said before, I'm so heartened by the strength that those jurors had and these parents of these victims to go through this after what they've gone through is unbelievable. And as far as whether or not this extends beyond, maybe, I think it's always going to boil down to foreseeability. I don't know that the tool was the issue. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if they had gone in there that day, they had gotten handed that math test, the math test that said, help me, blood everywhere, I can't stop the thoughts, and he had a knife in there and went and knifed 4 kids, I think we're in the same place.
I agree.
I really do.
I agree. Dr. Judy Ho, will parents get the message? Will this change behavior by parents who have teenage, and I'm going to focus on teenage boys?
Well, Vinnie, I do think that this is a landmark conviction, and I think that it's going to cause parents to take a second look at their parenting styles and what they're doing as parents to try to provide not only the best environment for their child to foster growth and resilience, but also to provide a safe environment for everybody involved in the community. I think you can see now that because of these 2 parallel cases with Jennifer and with James, that regardless of the tactic each chose, they both got the convictions, right? So James chose not to speak on his own behalf. He chose to remain silent, which of course is his right. And then Jennifer took a different approach. She went out swinging, essentially blaming other people, not really taking accountability. And both of them were prosecuted. And I think that that tells you something really important about what we're talking about in terms of attributing responsibility. That parents, you are responsible for your teenagers. Just because they are walking around, being more individualized, seemingly more independent, they are still living in your house. You are still responsible for them at least until the age of 18. And if you notice that there's something going on with your child, even if you can't explain it, even if you don't understand mental health, even if there's some stigma against mental illness that you might harbor, you still have to do something. This is something that 100% could have been prevented, and that's why it's so, so tragic.
Sharonda Brown, I raised 2 of them. How do you break through to a teenage boy to understand what's going on in his mind? They shut down. They don't talk. Should we snoop?
I definitely think we need to get in our kids' business more. And this doesn't just happen with teenagers. You got to set the tone when they're younger. I think sometimes people think that they can start disciplining at 13, 14, 15. No, you can't. You have to start when they're younger. Set the ground rules when they're younger. Set the tone when they're younger. Get in their business earlier, set parameters, set structure. But that comes from parents who care. And I think we keep using the term parents when we're talking about people who created killers, not parents. When you abuse them,
how do we get into their world? How do we get into their minds? How do we because no parent wants to think that their child is a mass murderer, right? We don't look at them that way. We say, oh no, not my child. How do we get in there? How do we get into their minds?
You talk to them. You ask them about their days. You listen to them. A lot of parents don't realize that when their children come talking about their days, that's them letting them in. But some parents are too busy. They're over the phone. They're doing other things. They have company. And so the child learns early, oh, I can't talk to this person. I can't do this. So then they'll start finding other ways to get their needs met. And sometimes those avenues are not the healthiest avenue because they're teaching your children how to become abusive and mean and hurtful. When you don't care for a child or don't pour into the child with care, they don't treat the world with care. And I think that that's the most important thing for parents to understand. When you allow them the room to speak and you listen to them uninterruptedly, they will tell you everything you need to know. But if they don't think you're paying attention, they'll do what they want.
Dr. Judy Ho, teenage boys, teenage girls, teenage boys, they are different. They are very different. Teenage boys, some of them, I don't understand everything they're going through. I know each child's different. Do you have any suggestions as well tonight? We have about 40 seconds.
Absolutely. First of all, parental monitoring is the #1 single positive indicator for all positive outcomes for your teen. So don't give up. Couple of quick tips. Put down those devices. Actually have time where everybody is device free, like at the dinner table. Don't invalidate their experiences. Even if you're rolling your eyes in the back of your mind thinking this is not important, make sure they feel heard. Practice active listening. Don't think about speaking over them, but just be there to listen and ask one question. How can I make this better? How can I help you today?
Well, all of you helped us tonight. I know we had breaking news. Bob Mata, thank you. Obviously, we'll see you again. We'll see Dr. Judy Ho again and Sharonda Brown. We appreciate your time, patience, and insight tonight.